This is the Star Wars The Black Series from the show Star Wars Ahsoka on Disney Plus. We have Sabine Wren. Man, this figure is incredibly difficult to obtain these days, especially after Disney has just dropped all the episodes of the show Star Wars Ahsoka. What an amazing show. I think I like it more than The Mandalorian, and I loved this character. And the actress, just brilliant, played her beautifully. I can imagine why fans, especially those who collect the Black Series, are just after this figure. It's a shame she's packed one per case yet again. Hasbro, come on, man. A very popular character. Of course, they had to pack it one per case. Anyway, I picked up this figure, one from Our Toys, and I picked up another one from Amazon.com because, you know, Hasbro and their quality issues. Can't be too sure. You got to get two. One of them has to be a quality defect, especially with my bad luck with Hasbro. Very excited to get this figure. Let's get her out of packaging. And here is Sabine Wren out of the box, together with her master, mentor, and friend, Ahsoka Tano. Both figures come from the same wave. This is the latest Ahsoka Tano figure, which I've shown in my other Ahsoka Tano Padawan Black Series review. And the figure looks great. I had concerns that this figure was going to disappoint, particularly with Sabine's head sculpt. That was my main issue because the photos that came out, the promo pics, just weren't too clear on whether we were going to get a good head sculpt. But having her in hand right now, my fears and suspicions and concerns were allayed. Let's take a closer look at the details of this new Black Series Sabine Wren. And here she is once again with her master, Ahsoka Tano, side by side. And I think they got the height and the scale correctly with this new Sabine figure. So the head sculpt wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It's okay. They got the likeness of Natasha Liu Bordizzo. Okay, good enough. I think my main issue is probably the hair. And I've heard a lot of collectors complaining about some quality issues with the way the eyes have been painted, the lips have been painted. So yeah, just be wary of that when you're picking through several on the pegs. I mean, if you can see several on the pegs, you are so lucky. But yeah, I do get it. I wish they could have put more eyeshadow, more mascara in the eyes. Yeah, it's good enough. It turned out better than I expected. Now, with my fears allayed on the head sculpt, let's talk about articulation. Head is on a ball joint, double ball joint, and another ball joint at the base of the neck. So triple ball joint for this figure. The chest or the torso is on a ball joint just at the ab area. There's no waist cut or waist swivel anymore. So there's just one joint, one ball joint peg for the upper torso. The shoulders are, I believe they're on butterflies. You can't really see it because of the vest or the armor, but there's a little bit of, there is a joint. There's a butterfly joint right there. Shoulders go in and out, forward and backward 360. No bicep swivel. It's a shame, but no double jointed elbows. But the hinge on the elbow allows you to bend about 95 degrees. There's also a swivel. The wrists go up and down and have a swivel. Same with this one. The hips are on ball joints and they allow you to do the splits for this figure. There is no thigh cut. I'm shocked that there's no thigh cut. Now, most of the Black Series figures, even the female figures, have the thigh cut. Even Ahsoka has a thigh cut right there, but this figure, for some reason, I don't know, is it because they didn't want to ruin the sculpt, they got rid of the thigh cut. And it's a shame because thigh cuts are great for posing the figures, and now you'll have to make do with this very versatile ball joint as sort of the thigh swivel. Sucks, but okay. The knees, again, no double joints. You only have a single hinge joint and a swivel. You got a boot cut. I think the boot cut was mainly because of the sculpt. They wanted to sculpt the boot differently from the leg, so they had to do that. And as such, the result, the byproduct was it's a swivel or a boot cut. The ankles can go up and down and have the rocker tilt. Paint apps of the figure came out great, except for the ones I mentioned with the head sculpt and all that. But the ones on the armor and all that, even on the guns, the pistols, I think they came out great. I think I got lucky with this figure. Most of the time I'd get a crappy one. So with the helmet on, the figure stands at about 14¼ centimeters tall, or about 5 5/8 inches tall. And for comparison with other Mandalorian Star Wars Black Series figures, here we have Bo-Katan Kryze on the right, and the Rebels Sabine Wren Black Series figure on the left. This is version 2.0 of this figure, which has the better head sculpt, which I'll show off later. And I think the reason they did this helmet like this, that it's a little loose, a lot easy to remove and replace, is probably because of the previous figures that are just so darn tight. I mean, it is ridiculously tight to remove helmets and put them back on, particularly for this Sabine Wren figure. The Bo-Katan figure was a little bit easier, but it was still a tight squeeze. I mean, really. And as such, I think because it's a tight fit, the hair sculpts on the head sculpts of both of these figures actually turned out better than this one. This one was just a little bit too flat. It's as though she didn't get a chance to blow dry her hair, and she had put on her helmet just after taking a shower and all that. So that's why her hair is a little bit flat on the sculpting and all that. But, you know, kidding aside, I think Hasbro decided to just give some allowance just to prevent that kind of case from happening. So if you want a look at the helmets, about the same scale, with the Sabine helmet being just a tad bit bigger in scale. I think these two are in scale with each other, but yeah. And also the scope, the targeting scope, I think the thinnest plastic used, I think, is with the Sabine helmet. This one was just way too thick back in the day. In terms of paint apps, man, all still very spectacular. They're glorious paint apps for all these helmets. And you know, the issue with the helmets back then was the visor being just half painted or overly painted. Now I think they got technology right. Great job on the paint work for these helmets. Now let's do some comparison with their Westar 35 blasters. So here's a close-up look at the blasters. I think the new new Westar 35 of Sabine's is, I think, the most detailed, probably the most accurate version out of all the three. Obviously, this one is very cartoony. It feels like it's die-cast. It looks like it's die-cast, but it's not. It's just painted that way. So the old blaster, just all silver and like brushed silver. The Westar of Bo-Katan is actually a pretty close version of their Westar blasters, but Sabine, I think, is the better mold. I thought at first they were identical, but I don't think they are. They look very, very similar. Yeah, I thought they were identical, but Sabine's is a little bit like a millimeter thicker. I don't know. Is it just my eyes playing tricks on me? I think they're different molds. Yeah, I honestly think they're different molds. You guys tell me in the comments if they're the exact same blaster. And one final note on the comparisons, what I do like with today's modern Black Series figures, you know, years ago, maybe even a decade ago, this is the standard for having an armor on a figure. What they would do is they would mold the chest or the armor onto the chest, and then the additional armor would just be super glued onto the molded torso. That was the staple back in the day. But with the recent releases of Black Series figures, what Hasbro did, I think, which is I think quite commendable, is there is a torso underneath, and they've made the armor sort of like a vest or a garment on top of that torso, and as such there's better proportion, there's better dimension, there's better details. I think it's great. You see this bit right here, her clothes with the armor molded on it is a separate piece onto the that's slapped on or put on the torso that articulates. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty ingenious form of technology that we're using now for action figures, and it does create a better sculpt, a better silhouette. Take nothing away from the previous figures. I mean, they were great back in the day, but I think this is the superior kind of technology for having armor or external garments on these new Black Series figures. So before we finish off this review, I want to talk about the lightsaber that this figure came with. Awesome looking lightsaber. The hilt molded beautifully, painted silver and black, or is it black plastic? It feels like it's black plastic painted silver. You can remove the blade and replace it fairly easily. It's a semi-flared peg. You can hook the lightsaber on a clip on her belt, and obviously she can hold it with either hand, and it is an amazing lightsaber. The hilt is made of softer plastic. Just a word of caution when you're taking it out of the packaging, the lightsaber is the most difficult one to remove from the clamshell, so be very careful with that when you're doing so. I have no idea what the best way to do so. Just be very gentle when you remove it, because it's been fit in the clamshell very tightly. Okay, so very cool lightsaber. Unfortunately, I don't have the Ezra lightsaber or Ezra figure to compare it with, but it does seem very similar to that Ezra lightsaber. But and finally, here she is with Bo-Katan dueling it out with a dark saber. Oh man, I wish we would have seen this, but unfortunately, it's never gonna happen. With the dark saber gone, spoiler alert, and it would have been cool to see these two fight for Mandalore, who's going to rule Mandalore and whatnot, but sadly it's not going to happen unless they reconstruct the dark saber in the new Filoni movie. I don't know, but yeah, very cool. And so some final thoughts on this Black Series Sabine Wren from the Ahsoka series. Man, I was completely wrong about this figure. I really love how it turned out. My biggest fear was the head sculpt. It wasn't going to be at par with a lot of the Black Series figures, but I think Hasbro delivered on that front. The overall look of the figure, I think, is great. I think it's a great sculpt. The looseness, oversize of the helmet doesn't bug me as much. I love the accessories. The lightsaber came out great. The Westar 35 blasters are great. The paint apps on this figure, I got lucky. I got no issues with the paint apps. Articulation could use some work. I mean, at this point in the life of the Black Series line, I don't think they should be removing articulation, particularly the thigh swivel, the bicep swivel. I mean, it would have been nice if we finally get double jointed elbows as a standard for Black Series figures, especially for the female figures, as well as double jointed knee joints. I mean, even a lot of the other Black Series figures, even the bigger ones like Malgus and Malak, we still get the single hinge swivel knee joints. And I kind of wish they could incorporate the technology that they've been using now with the Classified series, and even to a certain extent the Marvel Legends series. I wish they could put it in the Black Series line. That would just completely change the game for this line, this Black Series line. But anyway, we get what we get. It's still a great looking figure. Very happy with the way this figure turned out. This figure is going to get a 9.5 out of 10. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of this Star Wars The Black Series from the series Ahsoka, Sabine Wren. Hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of my latest video reviews. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.